something just happened high above our heads that threatens to completely upend every foundation of modern physics and astrophysics. Roughly 14 hours ago, NASA's orbiting Zora satellite registered a deep space event so statistically impossible that top researchers and scientists were left completely speechless. At first glance, the target was cataloged as just another routine cosmic traveler, a silent interstellar comet named 3IATLAS drifting through the freezing vacuum of space. But then the impossible occurred, something no natural comet in written human history has ever been observed doing. Floating millions of kilometers away, 3IATLAS suddenly fired a focused, highly concentrated electromagnetic pulse directly into Earth's upper atmosphere, and atmospheric telemetry showed that this targeted beam instantly began repairing a severely depleted section of our damaged ozone layer. This was not a solar flare, a random discharge of radiation, or an atmospheric coincidence. We are looking at a tightly focused beam of ultraviolet energy, aimed with microscopic accuracy at a specific depleted region over the southern hemisphere, proving that an object floating deep in space just executed precision atmospheric engineering on our planet. Comets do not heal biological biospheres, they do not calculate complex chemical formulas, and they certainly do not conduct targeted planetary restoration. Yet, according to official telemetry, that is precisely what transpired at exactly 0412 UTC. Environmental sensors tracking Earth's upper atmosphere detected a massive sudden surge in ozone density across a 1,000-mile-wide sector of the stratosphere. Initial panic in mission control led technicians to assume the instruments were experiencing a glitch, a sensor corruption, or a software processing error. However, independent observatories utilizing entirely different tracking systems and separate diagnostic methods quickly confirmed the exact same anomaly. In under 45 minutes, the ozone density in that targeted zone spiked by more than 400 Dobson units. To put that astounding metric into proper environmental context, natural planetary recovery of that magnitude would normally require nearly a full century of absolute zero pollution. Yet this object accomplished the entire atmospheric reconstruction process in less than 3/4 of an hour, instantly shattering every conventional astrophysical theory brought to the table. To grasp the sheer scale of this phenomenon, picture standing on Earth while targeting an object located over 34 million kilometers away in the deep cosmos. We believed 3IATLAS was nothing more than a harmless mass of rock and frozen gas, yet it emitted a frequency tuned so perfectly that it triggered instantaneous chemical synthesis on a rapidly spinning planet. The sheer math required for such targeting is mind-boggling because Earth is constantly rotating and its atmosphere is endlessly shifting, yet the energy beam remained locked onto the target zone without a fraction of a degree of deviation. Human technology would struggle immensely to maintain that level of pointing accuracy across such vast distances. As researchers looked past the initial raw numbers, a far more unsettling realization emerged. This discharge was not an accidental cosmic discharge, but an intentional act. NASA Deep Space Telemetry confirmed the origin of the pulse aligned directly with the orbital trajectory of 3IATLAS, forcing the scientific community to pivot from asking whether an anomaly happened to asking if a celestial body was executing controlled, deliberate actions. Originally discovered in August 2025, 3IATLAS was initially classified as a standard hyperbolic comet originating from outside our solar system. For months, it drifted predictably, outgassing minor vapor as it approached the sun, showing almost no signs of unusual behavior except for one single physical anomaly. An exceptionally dense core, weighing roughly 33 billion tons, compressed into an unusually compact crystalline center. At the time, astronomers viewed this high density as an interesting curiosity, but nothing that posed a threat or suggested advanced capabilities. That passive assumption shattered at 03P14 UDTC when the Zora satellite detected a staggering 18,000% spike in free oxygen atoms over the South Atlantic anomaly. Sentinel-5P spacecraft independently cross-verified the massive chemical shift, while ground observatories in Chile traced the high-energy beam back to the exact orbital position of 3IATLAS. Three separate monitoring networks using different detection methods all arrived at the exact same conclusion. An interstellar object was actively altering Earth's atmosphere. Executing an operation of this magnitude requires a level of technological sophistication that borders on the miraculous. Sustaining a coherent ultraviolet beam across millions of kilometers to hit a precise target on a rotating globe leaves zero room for error. Yet 3IATLAS maintained absolute alignment down to microscopic fractions of a degree. Natural cosmic phenomena distribute energy chaotically in all directions, but this beam acted like a focused instrument designed for a very specific outcome. Then, a second major anomaly occurred on May 8, 2026, at 2145 UTC, when researchers realized the beam was not continuous, but was pulsing at precise intervals of exactly 23.5 seconds. Every single pulse delivered another burst of energy that bound free oxygen into stable ozone with near-perfect chemical efficiency, moving with the cold, calculated precision of an automated assembly line operating inside our stratosphere. The structural perfection of these 23.5-second pulses rapidly transformed initial scientific curiosity into widespread panic. Natural cosmic events fluctuate, decay, and exhibit random noise, but 3IATLAS was operating on a rhythm so precise that it eliminated all possibility of standard cometary outgassing. A normal comet absorbs solar radiation, heats unevenly, and spews dust and gas chaotically into the void. 3IATLAS was instead focusing massive amounts of energy into a tight frequency specifically calibrated to trigger ozone synthesis in Earth's unique atmospheric composition. Calculations showed that the mathematical probability of an interstellar rock naturally generating this precise chain of targeted chemical reactions was less than 1 in several billion, effectively ruling out natural coincidence entirely. By 0110 UTC, a third anomaly pushed the situation far beyond simple physics when atmospheric sensors analyzed the newly created ozone molecules. The synthesized ozone possessed a unique isotopic structure that made it exponentially more resistant to chlorofluorocarbon destruction than naturally occurring ozone. The object was not merely restoring the damaged atmosphere to its previous state. It was actively upgrading and reinforcing the protective layer against future chemical decay. A natural cosmic object has no knowledge of planetary chemistry or industrial pollutants, yet 3IATLAS was selectively enhancing our atmosphere's durability. Furthermore, generating and projecting such an intense beam over tens of millions of kilometers requires immense power, which should have rapidly vaporized a normal icy comet. Yet spectroscopy data showed 3IATLAS remained completely intact, revealing complex metallic structures embedded deep within its core that possessed energy-channeling properties unknown to modern science. The mystery deepened on May 9th at 0622 UTC when NASA's Deep Space Network registered a sudden change in the object's movement. 3IATLAS abruptly halted its chaotic axial spin and locked its orientation into perfect alignment with Earth's magnetic poles. For a 33 billion-ton object traveling at extreme velocities to suddenly neutralize its own rotational momentum without fracturing should be physically impossible, yet Hubble telescope images confirmed the object's core suffered zero structural damage. Shortly after, the Gaia Space Observatory detected tiny, highly calculated trajectory adjustments occurring every 10 minutes. The object was making constant course corrections without releasing any visible gas plumes, heat trails, or chemical exhaust, effectively steering itself through the gravitational field of the solar system like an advanced autonomous vessel. Panic escalated exponentially within scientific institutions as global observatories redirected their primary assets toward the object and classified emergency meetings were convened. The debate split between those desperately seeking an undiscovered law of physics and those forced to accept the terrifying possibility of artificial design, station-keeping capabilities, and autonomous planetary engineering. But the most shocking revelation was still hidden within the pulses themselves. Deep space signal analysts filtering the ultraviolet beam discovered a secondary carrier wave buried underneath the primary energy transmission. The pulse was not just delivering raw power to synthesize ozone, it was carrying embedded data. On May 9th at 09:33 UTC, specialized signal receivers in Chile successfully decrypted the mathematical carrier wave hidden inside the 23.5-second pulse intervals. The decrypted transmission contained detailed atomic weights and molecular bonding structures that matched Earth's atmospheric composition from the pre-industrial era, roughly 3 centuries ago. The object was executing a repair protocol based on a precise historical blueprint of our planet's pristine biosphere. This discovery meant one of two terrifying things. Either nature possesses an active memory of planetary atmospheres, or an unknown intelligence mapped Earth's environmental parameters centuries before humanity developed spaceflight technology. In response to these findings, NASA and the European Space Agency immediately enacted strict emergency classification protocols, cutting live public telemetry feeds and silencing observational data streams. Yet despite the blackout, data continued to reveal physical impossibilities. Thermal imaging from the James Webb Space Telescope showed the surface of 3IATLAS was sitting at a freezing -210 degrees Celsius, while its interior core was burning at over 4,000 Kelvin. This extreme thermal disparity should have detonated the object instantly, yet it remained perfectly stable, behaving far more like a subterranean fusion reactor protected by an icy outer shield than a natural celestial body. Most unsettling of all was the adaptive nature of the transmission. The object was continuously monitoring Earth's atmospheric responses in real time, dynamically adjusting the frequency and intensity of its pulses to optimize ozone synthesis based on live feedback from our stratosphere. 3IATLAS is not just a drifting traveler passing through our solar system. It is an active, highly responsive entity carrying out a systematic environmental modification of our world. What do you think is really operating inside 3IATLAS? If you want to stay updated as this extraordinary situation unfolds, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. Something just occurred high above our planet that may force humanity to question everything it believes about the fundamental laws of the universe. Just 14 hours ago, according to an unfolding scientific scenario, NASA's Zora satellite recorded an atmospheric event so statistically improbable that even senior astrophysicists struggled to explain it using known physics. At first glance, the object responsible appeared ordinary enough, a distant interstellar comet drifting silently through deep space, looking like just another frozen traveler crossing our solar system. But then something shifted dramatically, producing a phenomenon never before recorded in astronomical history. The object, cataloged as 3IATLAS, reportedly fired a highly focused electromagnetic pulse directly into Earth's upper atmosphere. According to sensor readings, that directed pulse immediately began repairing a damaged portion of our planet's ozone layer. This was not a random burst of radiation, a solar flare, or an atmospheric coincidence. We are looking at a beam of focused ultraviolet energy, aimed with extreme accuracy at a specific depleted zone over the southern hemisphere, representing a targeted atmospheric intervention from an object floating millions of kilometers away. The implications are overwhelming because natural comets do not heal planets, they do not calculate complex chemical formulas, and they certainly do not perform precision environmental engineering. According to telemetry, the event occurred at precisely 0412 UTC, when monitoring instruments detected a rapid rise in ozone concentration across a 1,000-mile-wide sector of the stratosphere. Scientists initially assumed the incoming data had to be faulty, treating a sensor glitch or processing error as the most logical explanation. However, independent observatories using completely separate diagnostic equipment soon confirmed the exact same anomaly. In under 45 minutes, the ozone concentration in that specific region increased by over 400 Dobson units. Under normal planetary conditions, a recovery of that scale would take decades, with some estimates suggesting nearly a century of non-polluted conditions would be required for nature to achieve similar results. Happening in under 3/4 of an hour shattered confidence in conventional explanations. Picture targeting an object located over 34 million kilometers away while accounting for Earth's constant rotation and dynamic atmosphere. The beam maintained perfect alignment with the damaged region while continuously compensating for planetary movement, achieving a level of targeting accuracy that human engineering would struggle to replicate across such vast distances. As analysts looked beyond the initial numbers, a far more unsettling realization emerged. The pulse appeared deliberate rather than random. NASA Deep Space Telemetry traced the origin of the burst back to the orbital trajectory of 3I-ATLAS itself, eliminating solar flares, instrument interference, or local atmospheric anomalies. The data suggested that a drifting interstellar body had actively interacted with Earth's atmosphere, shifting the scientific debate from whether an anomaly occurred to whether a celestial body was demonstrating controlled behavior. Originally cataloged in August 2025, 3I-ATLAS was classified as a standard hyperbolic comet originating outside our solar system. For months, it outgassed quietly while approaching the inner solar system, behaving like a typical comet except for one physical detail, an extraordinarily high density of roughly 33 billion tons compressed into a crystalline core. At the time, researchers viewed this core as a minor curiosity, but nothing suggested the object could interact directly with a planetary biosphere. That passive assumption collapsed at 0314 UTC when NASA's Zora satellite registered an 18,000% spike in free oxygen atoms over the South Atlantic anomaly. Sentinel-5P spacecraft verified the chemical shift independently, while ground observatories in Chile traced the energy beam back to the exact coordinates of 3I-ATLAS. Three separate monitoring systems using different technologies reached the exact same conclusion. Delivering a coherent ultraviolet beam across millions of kilometers to strike a moving target on a spinning globe leaves virtually no margin for error, yet the pulse maintained alignment within fractions of a degree. While natural energy radiates chaotically in all directions, this event appeared focused, calculated, and controlled. Then, a second anomaly arrived on May 8, 2026 at 21:45 TAI, when researchers noticed the energy beam was firing in distinct bursts every 23.5 seconds. Each pulse triggered another localized chemical reaction that bound free oxygen into ozone with mechanical efficiency, resembling an automated production line operating inside our upper atmosphere. The mathematical structure of these 23.5-second pulses caused widespread concern within the research community, because natural comets do not operate on mechanical schedules. Behind those pulses was evidence suggesting the object was not merely releasing energy, but actively transmitting structured information. The realization that the ultraviolet bursts followed a strict timing cycle eliminated most natural theories, as physical processes do not naturally arrange themselves into perfectly repeating time blocks. With every single pulse, oxygen molecules bound into ozone with high efficiency, looking less like a passive comet and more like an automated system following pre-programmed instructions. A standard comet absorbs solar heat unevenly and spews gas chaotically into space, but 3I-ATLAS focused its energy into a narrow ultraviolet band calibrated specifically to Earth's atmospheric chemistry, while dynamically adjusting for planetary rotation. Calculations indicated the odds of an interstellar object naturally producing this exact series of reactions were less than 1 in several billion. By 0110 UTC, a third anomaly raised questions about whether the object was artificial. Instruments examining the newly formed ozone discovered an unusual isotopic structure that made the repaired molecules significantly more resistant to chlorofluorocarbon degradation than ordinary ozone. The atmospheric layer was not just being restored, it was being structurally reinforced against future chemical breakdown. A natural object possesses no intrinsic knowledge of molecular vulnerabilities or industrial pollutants, yet 3I-ATLAS demonstrated clear chemical selectivity. Furthermore, projecting a high-energy ultraviolet beam across deep space requires massive power that should have consumed the object's mass. Instead, 3I-ATLAS remained completely stable, with spectroscopy revealing dense metallic signatures deep inside its core capable of conducting energy in ways modern physics cannot easily explain. This suggested the presence of an internal power source operating within an interstellar body. On May 9th at 0622 UTC, NASA's Deep Space Network detected an unexpected stabilization in the object's rotation. 3I-ATLAS abruptly halted its chaotic axial spin and locked its orientation in alignment with Earth's magnetic poles. For a 33 billion-ton object moving at high velocity to halt its rotation without disintegrating defies standard mechanical models, Yet Hubble observations confirmed the outer structure remained fully intact. Soon after, the Gaia spacecraft detected tiny trajectory adjustments occurring every 10 minutes without any visible gas venting, heat signatures, or chemical exhaust. The object was making calculated course corrections in real time, steering silently through space while compensating for solar radiation, gravitational pulls, and Earth's orbital movement like an autonomous navigation unit. Observatories worldwide redirected their tracking instruments toward the single target as emergency meetings were convened. Debate grew between scientists seeking unknown natural phenomena and those evaluating concepts like artificial station keeping and automated planetary engineering. However, the most alarming discovery was located within the beam's carrier signal. Signal processing revealed a secondary data stream embedded beneath the primary energy bursts, featuring structured mathematical patterns rather than background noise. On May 9th at 09:33 UTC, Receives in Chile processed the wave through a decryption matrix, revealing that the signal contained atomic weights and molecular bonding profiles corresponding exactly to Earth's pre-industrial atmosphere from 3 centuries ago. The object was reconstructing our atmosphere using a specific historical blueprint. This revelation implied that either nature retains a chemical record of planetary biospheres, or an external intelligence mapped Earth's atmosphere centuries before humans developed space exploration. In response, NASA and the European Space Agency applied declassification protocols, restricting public access to deep space telemetry feeds and live observational channels. Despite the blackout, physical measurements continued to show anomalies, including thermal scans from the James Webb Space Telescope showing a surface temperature of -210 degrees Celsius, alongside a core temperature exceeding 4,000 Kelvin. Maintaining extreme internal heat beneath a freezing shell without structural failure suggested an enclosed energy system operating inside the object. Trajectory tracking confirmed the object was making minor course adjustments every 10 minutes to maintain its alignment with Earth without generating visible propulsion exhaust. Most significantly, the broadcasted chemical blueprint was continuously monitoring Earth's atmospheric feedback and adjusting its energy output dynamically in real time. 3IATLAS was operating as a responsive system engaged in deliberate environmental modification. If you want to follow this unfolding space mystery as new telemetry emerges, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your perspective on 3IATLAS in the comments section below.